Welcome to Home Group. My name is Rick Renner, and I'm coming to you from our amazing studio in Moscow, which our partners helped to build, and I want to say thank you for that. Denise, is this studio amazing?
Rick, this studio is so beautiful. I mean, before we were getting ready to film, I was just looking at it again, thinking this studio is so beautiful. And partners, thank you so much for helping us, for sending your money, praying, because really we're sitting in a miracle.
And Denise, the presence of God is in this place. Even when I'm not filming, I like to come in here and just sit because there's such a presence of God in this studio. And from this place, the Word of God is going to the ends of the earth. That is a miracle that this is coming from Moscow, Russia. And I just want to say thank you for being a partner. And that means you're a part of all of this. And you're a very big part of this. We can't do what we do unless you do what you do. And that's why we are partners in the work of God. And we really mean it when we use the word partner. But Denise, today it's you and me.
I know.
This has been a while since it's just been you and me.
This is how we started almost 43 years ago.
That's right. And you know, now all the kids have moved out. It's still just you and me again.
Still just you and me.
That's one thing about your marriage. You better invest in your spouse because one of these days the kids get married and moved out, and then you're with your spouse. You're back where you started. And we're enjoying it, aren't we?
Oh, certainly.
I'll give you a little insight into something Denise and I do. We sit together while Denise eats breakfast every morning. We have a good time together, and we talk throughout the day. But there's something I really like to do with Denise. Okay, Denise?
I know what it is.
Play Yahtzee.
I know it.
I love to play Yahtzee with Denise, and I love to play Sequence. And guess what? If you've never played Sequence, I know the clue, the key to winning Sequence every single game. Denise, is it the truth?
It's the truth. And you know what? He won't tell me. And so he won't even play with me on that anymore. I think because it's boring to him because he knows how to win.
But I want to tell you, playing Yahtzee with Denise is a stitch because she really gets into it. And sometimes she gets so wild in throwing the dice, it goes clear off the table. I always say, Denise, that's a little much. But anyway, that has nothing to do with Home Group. We're just telling you about a part of our life. We have fun together. And today we're going to be talking about my book, which is Fallen Angels, Giants, Monsters, and the World Before Your Flood. Have you ordered your copy yet? You need to go online or give us a call to get a copy of this book. Now, I want to tell you something amazing about this book. The month that I wrote this book, I wrote 2 books that month. 2 books in a month. The first book was called Renner A to Z. Have you ordered yours yet? Renner A to Z. You may not even know about it because it's brand new. And it's like an anthology of all the comments and quotes that I make on more than 400 different biblical topics. And there's nearly 1,800 quotes and comments. Well, to do that, I had 15 days, that's all I had, to read all my books. Now, Denise, I've written a lot of books, and they're big books. But I had to go through all of my books, it's nearly 50 books, and pull all the quotes, all the comments. I had to categorize them into 400 different subjects, and you can't just pull them, you have to modify them to stand alone. I did that in 15 days. Started on the 1st, and the book was due on the 15th. Well, by the 31st of the month, this book was due, which means I started writing this book on the 16th of the month, and by December 31st, it was done, and that is a miracle. It's amazing. And Denise, did I have fun writing this book?
Oh, you were writing that and you go, Denise, I'm having fun writing this book.
You know, here's the thing. It looks like a big book, and you might say, well, how did you write that in 15, 16 days? Well, I'd been studying this subject for a long time, so I was just full of all this information. And so I just pulled it all together. And I believe that this is a book that's going to really open treasures of the Bible to you. And Denise, listen to who some of the endorsers are. Are you ready for this? I mean, the endorsements just came one after another. Gene Bailey, Troy Brewer, Annette Capps, Todd Coconutta, Tony Cook, Mark Cowart, Lee Cummings, Alan DiDio, Denise, it's a big long list. Nancy Dufresne, Jimmy Evans, Michelle Ferguson, Robert Henderson, Rodney Howard Brown. How I love Rodney Howard Brown. Daniel Kalinda, Joni Lamb, Larry Ollison, Rod Parsley, Gabe Perot, Fred Price, Pastor Fred Price, Philip Renner, Sid Roth, Mike Signorelli, Larry Sparks, Ashley Teradies, Bob Yandian. I mean, that is a lot of endorsements. And Denise, they really read the book.
I know.
Anyway, I'm so blessed about it. But if you don't have a copy of yours, please go online or give us a call, because I believe you're going to want to read this book. I asked my editorial team, because of course it was their job to read through the material. I said, tell me in one word what you think of this book. One said riveting. Another said entertaining. Another said captivating. And I really like what Troy Brewer wrote in his endorsement. He said, buckle your seatbelt because you are headed on a ride. And Denise, it is really a ride through biblical history, and it is something else.
Oh, Rick, you know I read your book before all those other people did.
Yes.
And you know what I said.
Tell me again.
Well, I think it's an adventure. And of course, I think you're brilliant. And also, as I was reading it, I was appreciating all your research that it took for you to give this information to the people, and also for it to be so clear that we really are in the days, like the days of Noah. And for us to have that revelation, I think, Rick, it gives us a knowledge, and knowledge gives you confidence that God is not trying to scare us, but he's trying to prepare us. And Jesus was speaking that. Not only is it in Timothy that trying to prepare us and not scare us, but Jesus was saying this, that as in the days of Noah.
Well, let's go there.
So it will be.
So let's go there. Matthew 24, verse 37, Jesus was talking about the end of the age. And he says, but as the days of Noah were. And Denise, when you read this in the Greek text, it means exactly as. Exactly as. So Jesus is prophesying there's going to be a replication. Exactly as it was in the days of Noah, so shall also, the Greek means, so shall exactly be the coming of the Son of Man at the end of the age. So whatever was happening in the world before the flood, and the reason that God sent the flood, is going to be replicated before the next coming of Jesus. That's why I wrote the book. I began to think, all right, what was happening before the flood? So I dove into the annals of past history, and I examined the Bible. I examined the book of Enoch, the book of the giants, the book of Jasher, all kinds of books that are not Bible books, but they are considered to be serious historical documents, commentary on events that were occurring before the flood. And Denise, you know that I went to the lower mountains of Ararat, where I climbed all over the ruins of the ark. I even went to the big stone where Noah offered his first sacrifice to God. And I'm going to tell you, when you stand on that stone and realize where you're standing, it just nearly shook me to my core. It was such an amazing awareness that I'm standing in this place, which probably then is the oldest altar existing in the world, because it would be the first altar after they exited from the ark. And there's a groove cut all the way across the top of it where the blood flowed off of the stone. That's where God smelled the incense of the sacrifice. That's where the rainbow appeared. That's where God gave the first commandment, not to eat any more blood. And you know, why did God say not to eat blood? Because before the flood, the giants were killing and they were eating. They were cannibals. They were drinking blood. It was horrible what was in the earth. So when they came out of the ark, God gave the rule, no more drinking of blood. Let's not go there ever again. And God put a prohibition on that, so that what happened before the flood, they would not willingly enter into again. But what was happening in the world before the flood? All right, we know from history, we even know from Genesis chapter 6, that the sons of God who were fallen angels, by the way, all of that is in this book. Fallen angels descended into the atmosphere of the earth, and they begin to have sex with women. Now, I know that raises a lot of theological questions, but I answer them in this book. And we're told in Genesis chapter 6 that the women gave birth to giants, the word Nephilim. The word Nephilim is from the Hebrew word nephal, which means to fall. These were aberrations. These were hybrid creatures. They were half angelic, half human, horrible, horrible hybrid creatures. They were huge. And the word Nephilim from this word nephal means to fall. And some scholars say it could also describe them falling on people to attack them. It could also describe the response of people who saw them. When they saw them, they fainted, they fell. Everything associated with the Nephilim depicts some kind of a falling. First, they were an aberration. They fell on people. People who saw them collapsed out of fear. Everything about these Nephilim was fallen. Isn't that amazing? And the earth became populated with them. Now, when you read in 2 Peter, let's go there, Denise. 2
Okay.
Peter chapter 3, Peter refers to this nefarious moment. And he talks about the angels who sinned. I'm sorry, it's 2 Peter chapter 2.
Okay.
And in 2 Peter chapter 2, Peter says in verse 4, for if God spared not, by the way, spared is the word phaedomai, but it's with the word not, which is a negative. It literally means God did not go easy, or God was not lenient on the angels that sinned.
Mm-hmm.
The word sinned here is the Greek word hamartano. It describes those who really missed the mark. They knew what God was expecting of them. God had set them in the earth to be watchers to help mankind, and they transgressed, and they knew what they were doing. They sinned. They egregiously missed the mark of what God was expecting them to do. And what did God do? He cast them down into hell. The word cast is a form of the Greek word paradidomai. God grabbed them by the scruff of the neck. God himself. Now, some people say that God did it with the help of the archangel Michael. I don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us that. Maybe he did, but it was the agency of God at work. Grabbed these angels by the scruff of the neck, cast them down into hell. And Denise, the word hell is the Greek word Tartarus. Well, Tartarus, in mythological sense, described an underground abyss where mythological evil spirits were held. Well, now Peter uses that word, which tells us mythology really had its roots in Genesis chapter 6. What we call mythology, if you trace it all the way back to the very, 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 very beginning, it all goes back to Genesis chapter 6, where there were really some weird, nefarious, bizarre events that took place, and God took these sinning angels and put them into a place called Tartarus, that's the word hell here, an underground abyss, a holding tank, a prison, and notice what it says, and did what? Put them into chains of darkness. The word chains is plural, multiple chains. God was going to make sure this particular group of sinning angels never got free. Chains of judgment to be reserved unto chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. And the word judgment in Greek is the word crisis. It's where we get the word crisis, which means there's a day coming when those angels who sinned before the flood are going to have the biggest crisis beyond their imagination. It's going to be a crisis for them when God is going to deal with them and severely judge them. But right now, they're held in chains of darkness. And the word darkness, Denise, is the word zophos. And the word zophos doesn't just describe darkness. It is blackness so black it is completely mute of light. It's a blackness that you can feel. It is a suffocating blackness. Well, this will be the ultimate judgment for an angel, which was created to be a creature of light, and an angel who has speed. An angel has the ability to move. And now these angels, which were marvelously created and egregiously sinned, God has put them in chains so they can no longer move. And though they were created to be creatures of light, they are in suffocating darkness, and they've been there since before the flood. Before the flood, God put them there. But let's go on further. When you go to the book of Jude, let's go to Jude, because Jude also comments on this. And it's important to see what Jude says, because Jude was the half-brother of Jesus. And Jude, by the way, quotes from the book of Enoch. But let's go there. And when you go to Jude, there's only one chapter, verse 6. It says, "And the angels which kept not their first estate." Kept is a form of the Greek word tereo, which means to protect something. They were not careful of what God had given to them. Wow. Denise, when God gives us a serious responsibility, we need to preserve it. We need to keep it. And they just took it for granted. They didn't keep it. They didn't protect it. But instead, they left their own habitation. They abandoned that assignment which God hath given them, and God has reserved them in everlasting chains under darkness, there is it again, unto the judgment of the great day. So now we have Peter's witness, and we have Jude's witness about what these angels did. But now we have to go back to Peter. So go back to 2 Peter chapter 2, and I want to see about the flood. Then when you come to 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 5, "And spared not," the word spared is the same word we saw previously in verse 4. God spared not the angels, the word phadomai. Now we find it again in verse 5, "And spared not," the Greek word phadomai, which means God did not go to the world. The word old is the Greek word archaic. It describes that which is ancient. And the word world is cosmos, which describes a civilization. And now we find that God did not go easy on the entire ancient civilization that existed before the flood. Now, the fact is that today they're finding a lot of structures around the earth which predate the flood. They predate the flood. And Denise, you know where they're finding them? Under piles and piles and piles of sediment. And it seems that those ancient civilizations were quickly covered. Well, they were covered by mud and by dirt because of the flood. In fact, God judged them so severely. Look what the verse says. "Spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly." And the words "bringing in the flood," the Greek word epago, is the very same word which was used by writers of that time to describe what would happen when they released vicious wild dogs on people or animals. And the vicious wild dogs would not only attack the people or attack animals, they were so vicious they would rip them to shreds. Just rip them to shreds, take them to pieces. And now Peter pulls that word into this text to say that when the flood came, and by the word flood, the Greek word katakluzmos. Kata means down. The word kluzmos describes waves. We're talking about the biggest waves the earth has ever seen, and they were coming down upon the earth. And the impact of those waves, the flood, like wild dogs tearing something to pieces, tore that ancient civilization to pieces. So when Peter says God didn't go easy, or he wasn't lenient, he didn't spare them, they were completely buried or they were taken to pieces. And that's why today it's so hard to find complete pictures of that ancient civilization. They were wiped out in the flood.
You know, Rick, as you're talking,
We only have a few minutes.
it makes me just think of the fear of God, because when God brings judgment, that's it. And it seems to be in this world, there's so little fear of God.
Oh, that's right.
But God, there will be a judgment. I mean, he is so loving. He came himself and died for us and took our sin and our sickness and our disease and suffered and went to hell for us. He loves us so much. But there is a judgment, and we need the fear of God. Rick.
Well, God's not going to judge the world again with water. He promised that he would not. But the Bible does say that the world will be judged with fire at the end of the age. And all of that's in this book. My friends, you really need to have a copy of this book. But there's one more thing I want to talk about in the next home group.
Oh.
And that is, what is 120 years?
Oh.
God said that man's days would be 120 years. And then the judgment would come. What in the world did that mean? We're going to figure that out in the next home group, and it's going to be good. So you join us. But please order this book by going online or giving us a call and let us know how to pray for you, because we want to pray for you. We'll see you in the next home group. Bye-bye.
Please like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends so more people can see it.